2024, Venezuela. Over 80% of the population now lives in poverty, and many struggle to find their next meal. Even in a country with the world's largest oil reserves, economic mismanagement and corruption have left millions in despair. With violence on the rise and the healthcare system in ruins, how did Venezuela turn from a paradise to a place of suffering? This is the dark reality behind Venezuela's beauty. Severe food insecurity. First up, food insecurity. Imagine living in a place where getting your next meal is a daily struggle. In Venezuela, this is the harsh reality for a significant portion of the population. According to recent data, a staggering 82% of Venezuelans live in poverty, with 53% in extreme poverty. This means that more than half of the population can't afford a basic food basket. The situation is so dire that only 9% of households are considered food secure, while 22% face moderate to severe food insecurity. The root causes are multifaceted. Years of hyperinflation have rendered the local currency almost worthless, making it incredibly difficult for families to buy even the most basic necessities. The economic crisis, worsened by international sanctions and government mismanagement, has led to a lack of investment in agriculture and food production. As a result, the country relies heavily on imports, which are often scarce and expensive due to global supply chain disruptions. The COVID-19 pandemic has only worsened the situation. Lockdowns and restrictions have disrupted local markets and food distribution channels, making it even harder for people to access what little food is available. The World Food Programme, WFP, has stepped in to provide some relief, assisting 545,000 people in 2022 alone. However, this is just a drop in the ocean compared to the millions who are still struggling. To put it bluntly, the food situation in Venezuela is a ticking time bomb, with climate-related disasters like floods and droughts further damaging food systems. The outlook remains bleak. Families are forced to make impossible choices every day, often skipping meals or eating less nutritious food to make ends meet. Rampant violence and crime. Next, let's talk about violence and crime. Venezuela has one of the highest homicide rates in the world, second only to El Salvador as of 2020. In 2022, the country recorded nearly 40.4 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. While this is a slight decrease from previous years, it's still alarmingly high compared to other countries in the region. The Venezuelan Observatory of Violence reported a rate of 26.8 violent deaths per 100,000 people in 2023. This level of violence permeates everyday life, making it incredibly dangerous for residents to go about their daily activities. Gang warfare, rampant crime, and a general sense of lawlessness contribute to an environment where personal safety is a constant concern. The police force, plagued by corruption and underfunding, is often unable or unwilling to provide adequate protection. Many citizens feel they have no choice but to take matters into their own hands, leading to a vicious cycle of violence and retribution. The situation is so dire that even basic tasks like going to the grocery store or commuting to work can be a bad decision. The economic crisis hasn't helped matters. With unemployment rates soaring and businesses closing down, many people turn to illegal means to survive. This includes everything from petty theft to organized crime, further destabilizing the already fragile social fabric. Healthcare crisis. Venezuela's healthcare system is in shambles. In Venezuela, hospitals lack basic supplies like water, medicines, and even electricity. The situation is so dire that in mid-2021, an estimated 18.8 million Venezuelans lacked access to health services, including 10.4 million with chronic diseases. This means that nearly 2/3 of the population can't get the medical care they need. The country's Global Health Security (GHS) index score in 2021 was a dismal 20.9 out of 100, indicating severe deficiencies in its ability to handle health crises. The leading cause of death is heart disease, accounting for about 20% of deaths annually. Hypertension, a common ailment, affects many Venezuelans, but 41.2% of those with a history of hypertension don't have it under control, and 54.3% are unaware they even have the condition. Infectious diseases are also on the rise. Measles, diphtheria, and malaria vaccinations have fallen below essential levels, leading to outbreaks. In 2018 alone, there were 2,154 confirmed cases of measles, and over 1 million cases of malaria were reported, despite the disease being eradicated in the 1940s. The lack of anti-malarial drugs makes it increasingly difficult to combat this resurgence. The healthcare crisis has forced many to flee the country. Colombian migrant officials report that of the 50,000 Venezuelans who enter Cucuta daily, as many as 5,000 remain in Colombia, primarily seeking medicine or food. This migration worsens the spread of diseases. Economic collapse. Venezuela's economy has collapsed spectacularly. Once among the wealthiest nations in Latin America, the country now grapples with hyperinflation, rampant corruption, and economic mismanagement. The GDP per capita in 2023 was estimated at $3,474 nominal and $7,985 PPP, ranking 191st and 129th globally, respectively. These figures show just how bad of an economic downturn the country is going through. Hyperinflation has been a persistent issue since 1983, but it spiraled out of control starting in 2016. The currency instability has made it nearly impossible for people to afford basic necessities. In Venezuela, prices double every few weeks, making it impossible to plan for the future or save money. The economic collapse has led to widespread unemployment and the closure of businesses. The country's heavy reliance on oil revenue has backfired spectacularly. A significant decline in oil prices and production, coupled with inadequate government investments, resulted in the collapse of the national economy. The government's ineffective response to these challenges has left Venezuelans struggling with constant shortages of food, medicine, and other essentials. Social and political unrest further complicate the situation. Protests and violence are common, contributing to a pervasive sense of national insecurity. More than 5.4 million Venezuelans have fled the country, seeking better living conditions elsewhere. This mass exodus is one of the largest external displacement crises in the world, second only to the Syrian refugee crisis. Political repression. The politicians have sent the country into further crisis. Political repression is a harsh reality that affects millions. Under the regime of Nicolás Maduro, the government has systematically dismantled democratic institutions and stifled dissent. Venezuela is now a place where speaking out against the government could land you in prison. As of 2024, there are over 270 political prisoners in Venezuela, according to Human Rights Watch. These aren't just numbers, these are people, civic leaders, military personnel, and ordinary citizens who dared to voice their opposition. The Maduro regime uses food distribution as a tool for social control. In a country where 9.3 million people are moderately to severely food insecure, controlling food means controlling lives. The government's mismanagement has led to hyperinflation, making basic necessities unaffordable for the average Venezuelan. International sanctions have further crippled the economy, but the root cause remains internal mismanagement and corruption. The energy sector, which should be a boon given Venezuela's vast oil reserves, is in shambles due to lack of investment and maintenance. This has led to frequent power outages, affecting everything from daily life to critical healthcare services. Unfriendly people. Now, let's talk about the social fabric. You might think that in times of crisis, people would band together, but that's not always the case in Venezuela. The pervasive sense of insecurity has made people wary and distrustful. Rampant crime rates, including gang warfare and soaring violence, have created an environment where everyone is looking over their shoulder. According to sociologist Thomas Pires, Venezuelan parents and grandparents often encourage young people to leave the country for their own safety. The social divide is stark. If you're among the top 10% who can afford imported goods and private security, life might seem bearable, but for the remaining 90%, daily life is a struggle. Power shortages destroy appliances, long queues for gas are a norm, and the danger of falling ill without access to proper medical care looms large. Corruption is rampant, affecting every aspect of life, from getting a job to accessing basic services. Nearly 8 million Venezuelans have fled the country, with more than 6.5 million residing in Latin America and the Caribbean. These journeys are often dangerous, involving treks through jungles and risky sea voyages. The lack of proper documentation makes these migrants vulnerable to exploitation and victimization by smugglers and traffickers. Venezuela might be beautiful, but the combination of economic collapse, political repression, and social instability has created an environment where daily life is a constant struggle. And while the majestic Andes Mountains, lush Amazon rainforest, and pristine Caribbean beaches are a beauty to behold, there is an ugly beast of a country behind it all.